And it's time for another short video to go over the next mission. This time we're going to pack up our Kerbal. I think we're going to fly with Valentina today, and she's going to do a short hop in this very small rocket, which will gather some science for us and hopefully move us along onto our next mission. We are carrying the contract to launch our first vessel. We are not going to be attempting to get out of the atmosphere, not on that little rocket there. The RT-5 packs about 660 meters per second of delta V for this rocket, so it's not going to get us very far at all. It will take us up into the air, and then we'll come back down, and hopefully in the process Valentina will be able to steer us out to the water so we can get some science at the launch pad, some science flying above the shore, some science flying above the water, and some science in the water when we get there. We will take our crew report and Valentina's EVA report when we get out over the water. So flying over the water I think I'm going to do for this one, because I think that gets us some good science. Valentina's EVA can't happen until we land, because we can't do that yet, so she will do EVA in the water, but we'll do the flying crew report just to maybe get a little better science. I may compare those someday and find out which ones are better. Let me make sure I've got my notes going here. So honestly, Lively Rock was a successful mission, and we did everything we wanted to do, except I didn't, Nervously Mushy Land was successful, except it didn't collect my EVA report from the crawlerway, so we still need to do that. We're not going to collect that this time. My notes say that crew report flying over shores was like 3.5 science. We'll find out what the science is in the water sometime later, but we'll do that. We are ready to go. Let's check our software, because this does require some additional automation. There is our flight plan. This is the Go mission, the Go script for Honestly Lively Rock. You know, so we're actually adding some packages now. We are going to have a mission package which handles the mission sequencer, so we'll be able to run various phases of the mission, and eventually when we get to longer missions we're going to have to be able to handle rebooting in the middle of a mission, which means the mission sequencer will have to keep track of what step we're on and run that step over and over again until we're on another step, and we'll have to have some other things going on to support that. But for now we're just going to create the mission runner. We have a package called Phases, which is going to have stock coding for various phases of the mission. So we're going to create that package this time. We're not going to do much with them though. The bulk of the logic for this mission is just going to be linear here. I didn't want to take the time to write the full mission staging software, because we have other things that we're bringing in. I want to bring in a limited number of things on each flight. So we're going to create the mission package and create the phase package, but we're not going to do the whole mission flight plan and following the steps. So here's the flight plan. We're going to wait for the pilot to push space. We're going to wait until we're 50 meters up. That's enough that we could clear the gantry. And for the current launch pad, we really don't even need that. We could probably wait until we're 10 meters up or less. But we're going to wait for 50 meters up, by which time we should be moving along fairly neatly through the atmosphere. We're then going to pitch over toward the water. The water is at bearing 90 degrees, so this will rotate us to point Valentina's feet at the water, and then we're going to pitch over to 45 degrees. That's the angle from the horizon up to where the nose is. So 90-90 would be pointed straight up, At 90-0, it'd be pointed straight at the water. So 90-45 gets us a nice pitch angle. So we're just going to thrust in that direction. This will get much more complicated when we try to go for orbit. We're going to have to follow a gravity turn and all of that, but that's for a later day. Now, we're going to keep going that way until we start to drop. And when we start to drop, we're going to swing the craft around so that we're going in back first. So the base of the craft will be facing the water, so the tip of the craft points at surface retrograde. This is actually the direction that aerodynamics will push us when we're moving fast enough. Then we're going to wait until we are low enough and slow enough that it's safe to pop the parachute. We're going to rotate the craft to point directly upwards, and then we're going to pop the parachute. Now, directly upwards is the direction we will hang from the parachute once it gets going. And then we're going to wait until it falls. And I think I am going to add one more thing in here. Wait until alt radar is less than 100. So when I get down below 100 meters, when really close, so that's when we're going to release control. So we're only going to maintain control until below 100 meters. So below that, our KOS script will stop running. This will release control of the throttle and the steering, which will go to just whatever aerodynamics and the parachute force on us. Now, what's missing here? Obviously, we want to stage. If we look at the craft, we can see that there is a decoupler right there. So at some point during the flight, our SRB, our solid rocket booster, the can of boom, will run out of fuel. And we want to stage to get rid of it so that we don't have to land with it. Now, landing with it, maybe we could recover the cost of it, but for now I want to get in the habit of ejecting things so that we can continue to fly with multi-stage rockets. I think that's a small cost to pay to get that working correctly, because that means that one of the things we want to do is this line right here, where I am telling the mission runner, which we have to create for this, to run a background stager, which is a standard phase. So phases is going to have like FG something, which will be foreground phases, which will tend to run as primary control. Like if you're going to circularize, a foreground phase for circularization will run over and over and over again until you circularize it, will turn control over to the next phase. The background phases will just run until they're done and then go away, and they can run in the background while you're doing other things in the foreground. So this starts BG Stager running in the background. Let's take a look at it. BG Stager is a background task that does automatic staging. So it is going to wait. We don't want it to do anything if we are 100 meters. So below 100 meters, no automatic staging. If we're already on stage 0, we're done. So you notice here on our stage list, we've got stage 2 is the engine, stage 1 is the decoupler, and stage 0 is our parachute. If we're already at stage 0, it means that we can't go any further, so there's nothing else to do. Next thing is check engines. If we don't have any engines, then there's no point in staging because there's nothing to get rid of. So this prevents us from, for instance, having the automatic stager drop all of our engines and then keep staging, which would deploy parachutes and whatever else. So now we've got some engines. So we look through the engines. As part of the engine, this is something that got added since I was playing before, so my older scripts don't have this available. We can say, if this engine is decoupled in the next stage we'll be in, so if we're in stage 2, we're going to go to stage 1. So if the engine is decoupled when we go to stage 1, and if it has not flamed out yet, then just continue running, so don't stage. So this says if you've got engines that are firing, then call me back in a second. And if all of our engines are in flame out, all of the engines that are going to be discarded by this stage, now there may be none of them, there may be engines there that aren't discarded by this stage. We still want a stage in that case. If all of the engines that we would discard are out of fuel, that's what flame out means, we're out of fuel, then we're going to stage. So if stage is ready, then we want to stage, and we return 1. And I'm going to expand this line out a little bit. I'm going to say if stage. So we want to stage if all of that stuff is true for no, that breaks the logic. I have to be careful about my refactoring while I'm coding live. So if this engine is going to be decoupled and it has fuel, we want to return 1 from the middle of this loop. Now, KOS actually does the right thing here. I could say and it would do, it would test this condition, and if the condition was false, it wouldn't test the other condition. But let's make it absolutely clear what we're doing here so we can read it. So if all of the engines are in flame out, then we test stage ready. If staging is ready to go, then we stage and we return 1. So these background tasks will return a positive value saying, wait this long and call me back again. Or they will return a 0 or negative value saying, I'm done. Let's go with that. The other thing we need to look at is the mission package. So we have added one method to the mission package, which is do this in the background, and it gets past a function delegate. And that function delegate says, well, not the function delegate, here's our logic here. We use a when clause so that when this condition is true, KOS will wake up and will run this code here. And again, this code is kind of like the function I have. My function is returning either a delay or a stop now. In the case of a when then clause, you return true to say we're done, but recycle the condition, persist this. So if we just returned false, then we would wait until this condition was true, execute the body once, and we're done. If we return true, we go back to waiting for the condition again. So that's what we're doing here, is we're waiting until the time scheduled, we're calling the function, and if the function returns a positive value, we're setting the next scheduled time and saying persist. Otherwise return false. So there's our background. Background is really simple, and it's really useful. So let's take a look at what this does when we actually put it in flight. Get rid of our code editor because we are done looking at the code. Let's go do the flight. We are 15 minutes in, so 15 minutes of discussion, and I have 15 minutes left to actually do this flight and record the results. So we have, you'll notice, 4 Goo containers and 4 thermostats we want to sample during this flight. We also want to get a crew report, and we want to have Valentina get an EVA report. So trying to find the right things to trigger at the right times is a little tricky. So I'm going to start by observing on the ground. And we get some science, but not a lot for things we've already done. Depends on the experiment. Some experiments are better than others. So now we want to do one of these while we're flying over the shore, one flying over the water, and one landed. So we're going to take these and pin them so that I can see them. So I can just reach over and tap the observe buttons. And I'm willing to mouse around. Once we get on the water, I'll mouse around to find the one we haven't done yet. And if we, oops, I lost a thermometer. There we go. No, not that one. This one. Okay, so we've got 2 thermometers and 2 containment units ready to sample. We have our command pod and we're ready to hit the crew report down here. I'm going to open the terminal so we can see what's going on. And just for the curious, I'm going to leave the KOS, or the MECJEB display of Delta V stats here. I should have reduced the thrust on the thing, but we are not currently worried about that. The Kerbals have no thrust limit in this game. You can turn it on. I didn't. So here we go. Honestly Lively Rock is going to launch. There we go. And now we can observe the stuff while flying. And flying over Kerbin. Now this just said Mystery Goo while flying, so I may not get Mystery Goo while flying over the water. That may not be a thing for me. Let's dismiss those. And while I was talking, you noticed that the booster flamed out and was discarded. And there we have turned to face surface retrograde, so we're facing into the wind as we fall down. And this is a good place to take our over-the-water observations while flying at Kerbin. You notice that came up with full science again. The display of how much science you get from an observation doesn't take into account other observations that you have on the vessel. But that second observation is going to be less science. Oh, I almost forgot the crew report. There we go. Crew report while flying over Kerbin's water is 3.5 science. That is worth keeping. So we're still pointed upward, I believe. Yeah. And slowly descending. Let's physics warp down. We're only descending at 6 to 7 meters a second. Okay, so we're down. We need to observe the remaining Mystery Goo, which is 4 science. That's cool. Goo escapes into the water, and the temperature from that. And now we need to take Valentina EVA. Cannot disembark while off Kerbin's surface. Astronaut complex upgrade required. So, apparently, floating in the water, you can't EVA with Valentina. So I will not get an EVA in the water. So I can't get an EVA report now. That's unfortunate. Because I thought we used to be able to do that. Let's try one more time. Yes, there we go. So you have to turn off the physics warp. That makes sense. So Valentina's EVA report from the water is another 3 science. Cool. 3.2. And we can board and recover the vessel. And now let's see what we got. We got a crew report while flying over Kerbin water for 3.5 and an EVA from the water for 3.2. And Mystery Goo while flying at Kerbin for 7. And Mystery Goo from the water for 4. And Mystery Goo from the launch pad. That only was 0.7 because we already had one. Mystery Goo while flying is 1.6. And a temperature scan from the launch pad for 2.4. Temperature scan while flying over the water for 5.6. Oh, those are, I'm getting a lot of good science. Flying over shores for another 5.6. And temperature scan from the water for another 3.2. And 0.8 science for recovery of a vessel. And I now have 59 science. I know what I'm going to spend that on. So there's our science parts. All of the parts we used, we're going to get back some of the funds. I'm not sure what the fraction is there, but we get back a good chunk of them. And we're now up to 126,000 funds. Part of that was from our contracts. And Valentina got some let's write that down. Funds. 126. And we now have Valentina with 23 reputation. As far as contracts are concerned, we have no pending contracts. We'll have to go back and look at our completed contracts to see what went on there. Messages. World's first milestones. We broke a bunch of records. Yay! And those got us some science and some reputation. That is cool. So land distance and altitude records, speed records, and splashed into the ocean for 5,000 funds almost. That is really good. We finished a contract to launch our first vessel. And there is our completion reward. So the first one was the advance, and here's the completion. And we can see in the archives that we have, in fact, archived that. We have no active. For contracts, we have a whole bunch of these. Explore somewhere. These actually are better if you are building an aircraft. They're kind of hard to do. We've got some part testing contracts. It's fairly hard. Again, these also are fairly hard to do unless you plan out the mission for it, and they're fairly unpredictable, so I don't like to count on them. If we've got any that are test something while on the launch pad, I'll go ahead and knock those out just for a little extra money now and then, but mostly I don't do them. So our next goal will be to escape the atmosphere, and we don't want to take the orbit Kerbin contract yet, because once we've escaped the atmosphere, we'll probably be running some tourists around. And that will be in the next one. Sorry, I've got a bit of a throat. And in the 5 minutes we have left, can we get all 3 of these? We can get survivability, which is our heat shields, and a barometer, so more science. We can actually repeat that last flight with a barometer added and get barometric pressures at all those places. We've got some landing struts, so we can land things that are bigger and heavier. Those have a better impact tolerance than our pod, and definitely better impact tolerance than, say, the service bay, which might be the bottom. Oh, wait a minute. Service bay is 14. Those are 10. Landing on a service bay is better? Okay, so the struts are more tolerant than heat shields, but a service bay is really studly. 14 meters per second. We may be landing on a service bay for a while. Anyway, 14 meters per second means we can be a lot heavier under that one parachute and still manage to land. Anyway, so there's survivability. Next one is stability, which is a nose cone for aerodynamics. This is for if we have a radial stage, let's say we're putting an SRB out to the side, this will make it so that it doesn't have as much drag. We've got better winglets. These just winglets that point straight ahead. There's no steering on them, but it will keep things pointed straight. And radial decouplers, so we can have our rocket be this vertical stack, and we can put boosters on the side or stages on the side. We already have the one that stages down. And general rocketry, we add a liquid fueled engine which can be turned. So this is a really nice engine, especially for high atmosphere and orbit. It means you'll be able to steer without aerodynamics. And we don't actually have aerodynamics yet. That's going to be a while. So let me make sure that's right. Yeah, we don't have any controllable surfaces for turning based on aero. So this is going to be our way that we maintain our attitude. What we've been doing in the past is there's a small amount of reaction wheels in the command pod, which we were using to turn the vehicle around. This means that we'll be able to turn better. We've got these really big boosters. This is a massive amount of thrust and a massive amount of ISP. So this is our preferred way of launching for decent rockets. And we've got our first modest size fuel tank. So this is going to be about, well, you see there it's 90 liquid fuel and 110 oxidizer, which is the correct mix for these engines. So we're going to research that. And that's got that whole tier. We have 6.8 science left, and the next tier is going to cost us 45 science each. The tier after that is 90, and to get beyond that, we'll need to build up funds and upgrade the science area. But you see that at this 160 level, we've got things like specialized control and bigger command modules and all of that. Advanced electronics is good. Electrics, this is our I believe this is where we get photovoltaics. Yeah, basic science gets us our rechargeable battery packs and experiment storage units, so we can gather experiments into a storage unit and then jettison the experiments if they're too heavy. It's not until this tier where we're getting the solar panels. So we can't do any long flights until we get up to here. Anyway, so that's where we're going. Aviation, I am really bad at flying aircraft in this thing, and I have never tried to set up a KOS script to pilot an aircraft, and probably won't. So we'll grab aviation so we can roll around a bit, but I'm not going to be doing a lot of flights with it. This is going to be 45 and 45 and 45, and this guy gets us the rest of the 45, so that's 90, 180, 180, and another 45 is going to be, 200 and something to get this tier. So that's where we're going. Let's drop a save. So I had this after 01 nervously mushy land, so we're going to do an after 02 save. Cancel save game. After 02 honestly lively rock. And I'm using a 2-digit number because I am confident this will go more than 10 of these, and I doubt they will go more than 100, and if they do, I'll figure out a way to make the quick saves work right, or I'll start recycling them or something. So honestly, Lively Rock is complete, and we are done with this stream at 30 minutes and 2 seconds. See you next time.